Hello and welcome to Canvas Assignments and Rubrics Training, presented by the Learning Innovations team. In this training, we will cover assignments and rubric creation. We will also provide an overview of the student experience of the assignment submission and feedback review process. If you're new to Canvas, we recommend attending Getting Started with Canvas prior to this session. So today's objectives, we're going to show you how to create a simple assignment, create and attach a rubric to the assignment, grade the assignment with or without a rubric, and experience the student perspective by locating the assignment and rubric, by submitting the assignment, and by viewing the feedback. So some important Canvas assignment settings. The first thing we're going to go over is the assignment index page, and we'll review this quite heavily. We'll view all course assignments. An assignment is defined as any graded course activity. Organize assignments within assignment groups and use assignment groups to set up weighted grading. We'll also review the plagiarism checker. Turnitin is what it's called here in Canvas. Available for assignments set up as online submission type, text entries, and file uploads. So there's also a couple of other settings that we won't go over in the plagiarism checker, but you'll be able to have a view of what it looks like. We'll also go over a little bit about peer review assignments, which are available for assignments set up as no submission, online, on paper. Also, how to assign peer reviews. We can assign them manually or automatically assign them. So let's go ahead and dive into the assignments and rubrics training. Okay, here we are at the our faculty training Canvas page, and we're on the home page right now. And so the first thing we're going to do with assignments is select the assignments index page in the menu, in the course menu here on the left-hand side. So I'm going to select assignments index page. So assignments. That's going to take us into everything that is graded. Remember that definition, everything that's graded. So remember that this feeds into the gradebook. Anything in here feeds into the gradebook. Basically anything worth points will populate in the assignment index page. This includes discussions, quizzes, and assignments. So all three will populate in here, even though it says assignments in the menu, it will still populate with all three of those. So there's a search field up here in the corner because sometimes this can get extremely long and have quite a few assignments, discussions, quizzes in there. So if you just want to search for one thing, it's up here in the corner. So if I just put, say, example, it's going to bring up everything that has example in it. Or maybe I want to look for quizzes, or maybe a specific quiz on essays. So that search function will work quite well. If you add your assignment to the modules page, this page can be hidden from the student view, allowing students to work from modules only. And then you can still access this. What I mean by that is with our template for Global Campus, or if you are using modules such as things for weeks, split up into lessons maybe, and you want them to strictly work out of this, then you can go in, and we'll show you this later, hit the plus button, click the plus button in the upper right hand corner, so select the plus button and then add the assignment directly here. Once you create the new assignment, it will automatically populate into the assignments index page in the menu. So then what happens is if you get everything in here, all discussions and quizzes and assignments in your module, and you just want them to work out of the module, then you can actually hide the assignments menu item, and the students will not be able to access the assignments page. They'll only work out of the modules themselves. So let's talk about editing assignment dates. So staying on the assignments, so let's go back to the assignments. I'm going to select the assignments menu item on the left-hand side. Then I'm going to go to the upper right-hand side and select Edit Assignment Dates. First, I'm going to select the 3 vertical dots in the upper right-hand corner. It says Assignment Settings when I hover over it. And then I'm going to select Edit Assignment Dates. This page is a bulk view of due dates and availability. Here you can adjust due dates and availability of assignments as opposed to going to the specific assignment in your course and adjusting it there one by one. This is an easy way to adjust due dates and availability of any graded item or item that is worth points. Again, this includes the things that's included in the assignments page would be discussions, quizzes, and assignments. So that is what's going to actually be listed on this edit assignments dates. So here's a really good way to bulk do that, I guess, if you want to call it that, and without having to go into the specific assignment. Okay, so let's go back to the assignments. I'm going to select the assignments in the menu item to the left. Now we're going to go to the top of this assignments page and select plus group. We're going to talk about weighting here and how to create groups like this, online portfolio or quizzes or discussions or participation, depending on what kind of groups you want. This is very important for weighting especially. So groups are a good way to organize assignments. It is helpful to create your groups in advance if all assignments are not ready to be populated in the course. In addition to organization, you can also weight the final grade based on your assignment group and drop the lowest or highest scores, and we'll show you that a little bit here. So I'm going to select the plus group grade button, and I can actually create a group here. We're just going to call this practice. And I'm going to select Save. I'm going to go down. You can see it says Assignments Groups was saved successfully. It's going to end up at the bottom here. And it has now created the practice group. So I'm going to go over a few options and scroll up at the top, and then we're going to come back to that and talk more about weighting. So I'm going to go to the upper right-hand corner for the 3 dots up here. Next to the crimson assignment button, we're going to select the 3 dots. And here are the assignment index options. So these are going to be the options for the entire page for this assignments page. Here you can see all the assignment groups for group weights. So let's go ahead and select assignment group weight. Now I'm going to select this weight final grade based on assignment groups. I have to check that to be able to see these here. So then you can see that these are listed in the same order that you can see behind here. So online portfolio and quizzes, you can see that they're here and they have been assigned a weight. Now you can change these obviously if you'd like. You can make this 15, anything like that. So I'm going to go back to the right hand corner and hit assignment group weights. I'm going to put that back at 10 so I don't mess things up here. I'm going to hit save. here in just a second. But you can see that all of this adds up to a total percentage. You can kind of see where we're at here. Reason why this is at 110% is because we have an extra credit column here. So in a I believe gradebook, we kind of talk a little bit about extra credit, but we won't talk about it here in this particular training. But if I took this out, it would end up at 100%, so it will do the addition for you. I'm going to click Save, select Save. So if you're going to use weighted grades, you have to do it this way. This is what feeds into that gradebook and tells the gradebook, hey, I want you to weight the final grade. So let's now talk about assignment group options. And that would be, let's say for this one group, which is the online portfolio, we want to look at options specifically for that one group. So I'm going to go to the online portfolio header here, and I'm going to go to the right hand side of that and select the 3 vertical dots. And then I'm going to select the crimson edit with the pencil next to it. You can see the group name is there. I can change it if I want to. I'm not going to go ahead and change that one. You can see that the weight is also in here, so if you want to change that, it's the same weight that showed up in that screen previously. So in this window, you can see that rules for the assignment group. You can see the rules for the assignment group. You can drop the lowest and highest grade, and weighting can be adjusted, and we just showed you that. And you can also select ones that said never drop. So here's the number of scores to ignore. Remember that, ignore for each student. Lowest, in this case it says 2 scores, or ignore the highest score. There's also a never drop, because sometimes in a group you might have something that everyone has to do and we don't ever want to drop that one. So then there's a never drop section in there, and you can add another assignment to this and that would never drop that particular assignment. I'm going to go ahead and select Crimson Save button at the bottom right hand corner. So let's start with the assignments by actually creating an assignment. So to create the assignment specifically from our assignments index page, we're going to select the red plus assignment button, crimson I should say, plus assignment button in the upper right hand corner. So I'm going to select that. And it takes us right into a new assignment. So here you can put the assignment name. I'm going to say practice assignment. So that would be the title of your assignment. Down here we have the rich content editor, which we go over in getting started for Canvas training. So this is where you would put the instructions. Okay, any instructions, you can obviously enter anything else in here, and again watch the getting started training to learn how to use this rich content editor. So we're going to go over the settings that are in here now, and we're going to kind of skip a little bit and then come back to some things because some things are a little more in-depth than others. So let's now, here's the points, obviously you can see that. These are the groups. So these are going to be the points that you're going to assign. The assignment group, which is, these are the groups that we created previously. Okay, so any groups that you have that you want this particular assignment to go into, that's what you would select here. So I'm going to leave it as online portfolio. You can display the grade to the students as a percentage, complete, incomplete, points, letter grade, GPA scale and not graded. So sometimes you have a not graded thing in here too. So we're going to leave it as points because normally that's what many assignments are. There's also a do not count this assignment towards the final grade. So here's the submission type, and we kind of went over this a little bit earlier. So submission type is very important, especially if they are going to be submitting things online. So if you click the drop down, if you select the drop down to submission types, you can have no submissions. So maybe they're just instructions on what they need to do for something on their own or in a different capacity. You could also have online, which is the most popular one or the one that we use the most. Or on paper, maybe you want them to submit something on paper. For external tool, these are going to be things that like Alex or Perusal or VoiceThread, that kind of thing. So we don't go over this one until we get to those trainings in different trainings for Perusal and VoiceThread. We're going to leave this as online. So when choosing the online options, it's best practice to select only one entry option, because when a student submits, they are only allowed to submit one type at a time and cannot view their original submission when multiple attempts are allowed. So choose one entry type and have students use the text comment area to enter any written content if needed. So in this case, we do text entry because they could attach their assignment, paper, Word document, whatever you want them to attach. And then they can write a text. Here's my assignment, and here's, I hope you like it. Please give me a good grade, that kind of thing. Then we can also go down and select file uploads at the bottom. And that means they can upload any file. Now, you can restrict the uploads. I'm going to select that, restrict upload file type. And it gives you an example here, for example, doc, Excel, text. Here, if you want to. I normally don't, because the students generally do Word or PDF. If you want them to specifically have something, then you can restrict it. I'm going to deselect that one. Now let's scroll down and talk about, actually I may change the points really quick so I can make sure I've got something good here. I'm going to scroll to the bottom where it says assign. So this assign to is pretty important. Right now it says assign to everyone who's enrolled in the class. If I select the drop down here, and I'm just clicking right into the box, it shows me all the students that are enrolled in this particular course, and I can select any student here. Now when I do that, you can see that this changes to everyone else. Okay, I'm going to deselect that one. Here is also the due date. This is going to be when the assignment is actually due. Now, with due dates, if I select this and put this as, let's just say it's today. That's the due date. Actually, let's make it for the 3rd, which we'll make it for next week. So February 10th. Now, the available from and to is very important. If you are going to accept late work past the February 10th date or whatever date you put in here, you'll need to make sure your until date is going to be past the date that you have for the due date. So in this case, for February, if the availability date or the due date is February 10th, I'm going to make it open from, let's say it was open from yesterday. We can always make it today, but I want to make it available for today. So I'm going to say February 1st until, and I'm going to make this until past February 10th. So I'm going to say I accept it all the way through the 14th. It gives me the option to have late work and put a late work policy in the gradebook, which we go over in the gradebook training. I'm going to save. Now you can save and publish or just save. I'm going to go ahead and do save and publish. And you can see that it brings me back here. So let's go over some additional settings. And in this section, we'll cover Turnitin, the current similarity checker. In addition, we'll cover group assignments, peer review, and moderated grading. So I'm going to select Edit. Let me go back. I'm going to do that because I kind of went too fast. I'm going to select Edit in the upper right-hand corner, the gray Edit button. Takes me into the assignment again that I just created. And let's go over Turnitin. I'm going to scroll down. Okay, we're going to stop at Plagiarism Review section. So Turnitin is a tool to assist students and instructors in recognizing how similar students' work is to existing work within Turnitin. Turnitin does not identify plagiarism. The identification of plagiarism requires the intervention and judgment of the instructor. Turnitin is a good way to have conversations about incorporating and citing sources with your students. So Turnitin provides a similarity percentage, which is calculated by dividing the number of matching words by the total number of words in the document. So with submission indexing, submissions are saved to Turnitin repository for future similarity reports. So anything that's turned in goes into that repository, and then other submissions would be checked to that with a similarity report. So with Plagiarism Review, I'm going to select in that box the drop down and then select Turnitin, which brings up all the options here. Now you can see that index all submissions. You can see the bibliography, exclude from similarity reports, bibliography and quotes. You can also see general similarity reports. Now you can show them immediately on the due date, which is recommended, or you can do it immediately, period, as soon as they submit. I'm going to say immediately. Now down here at the bottom it says show report to students. You can say immediately. I would say do it immediately. It only helps the students, right? Or you can do it after the assignment is graded, or after the due date, or never. I'm going to leave it as immediately. So let's talk about the group assignments. So this allows for entering of a single grade or a number of students in the group option to give individual grades. So let's select this is a group assignment, and so it gives you these categories here in this to look at. Assign grades to each student individually. So if you want that grade to go individually to the students, you can select that, or you can select which group set. Now, we would suggest going into the People tab, or the People menu item here, and creating your groups first. Then that's what will populate right here. Or you can create a whole new group category here. I'm going to deselect that. So with peer review, setting an assignment up for peer review is a great way to build community and student engagement. So let's go ahead and select peer review, and then there's a checkbox right next to that says require peer reviews. Here you have an option of having manually assigned peer reviews or automatically assigned peer reviews. So automatic, students cannot view before the due date or before submitting their own assignments. So that means they have to submit and then they can view peer reviews. Manually allows the students to review before the due date or before their own assignment. Creating an assignment for peer review does not create a separate column in the gradebook. So this is pretty important about peer review. It doesn't create a separate column in the gradebook. So if you're going to assign points to peer reviews, you'll need to create an additional no submission column strictly for inputting peer review completion points. And if you'd like to stop by or on demand or ask us, we would be happy to help you out with that, creating that new column. So now let's uncheck peer review for now. Let's talk about moderated grading. So moderated grading allows multiple reviewers to grade a student's work and create provisional grades for an assignment. For instance, if you may want to assign 2 TAs in your course to grade all assignments, you can then review their assessments before determining the final grade. Moderated grading can also be a helpful tool for promoting more alignment and consistency among graders in your course. Okay, so I'm going to select moderated grading. That brings up some menu items here. Allow moderating review multiple independent grades. Okay, so basically the number of graders you can select here. You can change this number if you'd like. Let's just say that 2. I want 2 graders to grade this particular assignment. Now you can have this box checked below that, which is graders can view each other's comments. So that means both of these graders that you select here will be able to review each other's comments that they make. But the grader that determines the final grade, which is the next drop down, would be the person that would say what that student gets. So if these 2 graders give the student a B and a D, then whoever's in here, which most likely would be the instructor, would be able to say, I'm going to actually give this student a C, or I'm going to give them a B, or I'm going to give them an A, whatever you want to do. Now, if you want this to be more anonymous, the final grader, whoever this is in this drop-down menu here, the final grader can view other grader names. So you can view their names, or you can uncheck that box and you wouldn't be able to see their names, so you wouldn't know who is the one that gave that grade. Okay, so I'm going to deselect moderated grading for right now since we've seen that, and I'm going to select Save. All right, so now that we've created our assignment here for the practice assignment, we're going to create a rubric. So you can see here in the assignment, you can select the plus gray rubric button, so plus rubric here in about the middle of the page. So I'm going to go ahead and select that, and it brings up a box. So in all, rubrics allow for transparency between instructors and their students. Using rubrics helps students know how their work will be evaluated and can provide insights into how they can further improve. So alternatively to selecting the button and bringing up this, if you already have all of your rubrics and you just want to enter them all at once, then in the menu item to the left for the course, if you scroll down, there is a rubrics menu item, and you can go ahead and select this, and then you can create all your rubrics for all your assignments or quizzes or whatever you have first, and then you can go in and select the find a rubric over here on the right hand side, and then you'll be able to go into that screen and find that rubric and just immediately attach it. But here for this assignment, we can create a rubric right here for this particular assignment. So we can call this, we're just going to call this practice rubric. Okay. Now here you can add in the criteria. You have columns, criteria, rating, and points. We're going to go ahead and do criteria. There is a pencil next to the criteria, and I'm going to select that, which brings up a box for description. So I'm going to put in here just writing boy, I'm going to spell this one wrong. You can put a longer description in here if you want to. Anything you'd like. And then I'm going to say update criteria. You can see that it is now updated. Okay. So for ratings, you can see right here, there's some points here, 5 to 0, but if you want to add more, which normally there is, you would select the red plus button. And we can say at 3 points, let's go ahead and say rating title. I'm just going to put medium. You can also put a rating description in there too, so we're going to say update rate. You can see that that 3 points is now here, and it says medium. Full marks, medium, no marks. Now, if you would like it to be a range, maybe 4 to 5 points or 2 to 3 points, we can do that here too. In the criteria option, we can say range and check that, and it's going to automatically give a range here. Okay, we can change that range if we'd like. I'm going to select the pencil option here. And we can say 4 to 5 would be full marks. I'm going to say update. You can see that. It automatically changes this number here. I'm going to select the pencil item in that column and say, we're going to say it's going to be 2 to 4 for medium. You can see that it automatically updated it here as well. And so on and so forth. You can see that the total points are here for that. Okay. To set a new criteria, because usually there's more than just one criteria, we're going to select the crimson plus criteria button. I'm going to select that. Now in here you have two options. You can create a new criteria, or you can just duplicate the one you just created, right? If you have the same points range, it's easier just to duplicate and then maybe just change the name. So if I hit writing technique, it's going to give me that. Maybe I want to change this to number of pages and say update. Now you can see that it's writing technique here, number of pages with the same criteria here. Now if you do change this, let's say that this one here, I'm going to change to I'm going to leave it as that. I'm going to say just so here for the sake of time. You can see that these don't line up very well, so be cognizant of that one, that it looks kind of strange if you add different criteria for different one. Okay. So let's talk about points versus range. So a point-based score can be attributed to each rating using point values. Range applies to a point range to ratings. When used, applies highest score for rating, but this can be adjusted. Okay, so when you're using a range, it applies the highest score, and we'll show you that in just a minute when I hopefully can use this one or use a different rubric here in a different assignment. But you can see that when we get there, we can see what the range does versus points. So I'm going to deselect this and just make this one points, and then keep this one as a range. So I'm going to go ahead and say create rubric at the bottom, the red crimson create a rubric. I'm going to select that, and it's just going to automatically put it right in here. Okay. What I could do in other situations is adding a rubric. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete the one I already made because I believe I have other ones in here. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this, hitting the trash can in the upper right hand corner. I'm going to say OK. All right, so let's say I want to add a rubric. So I'm going to hit the gray plus rubric button. And I already created all my rubrics in the menu item here. And I want to find the rubrics I just created. I'm going to select Find a Rubric, Crimson Find a Rubric here. Now, what brings it up is going to be the courses that we have. So if you have rubrics in other courses, you can use those. But right now we're in faculty training, which is right. In faculty training, I have these rubrics already set up. There's 3 rubrics already set up, okay? So I can select which one I want. And then in this third window, it's going to show you what that rubric looks like. And then you can select use this rubric if you'd like. Okay. So if I want to use this one, rubrics for assignments and rubrics training, I'll select that. It'll show me what it has. I'm going to say use this rubric button at the bottom here. Okay, and it automatically inputs that into the assignment. So let's now talk about the settings that we saw just a few minutes ago. To find the settings, I'm going to go to the rubric and select the pencil that's in the upper right-hand corner of the rubric. And we're going to go down to the bottom. Scrolling down to the bottom, you can see that there are some check boxes here. And so let's kind of go over a little bit here. We'll go over it too in depth, but we'll kind of run through them. So this first one, write free-form comments when assessing students. It removes the ratings. Important to note that the option to comment is still available if this setting is not enabled. Points can still be enabled. So let's go ahead and check that one. Okay, and you can see how it changes. Ratings and criteria. So basically, you can see that it removes the ratings. I'm going to go ahead and just uncheck that to keep that the same. So remove points from rubrics. So this is really kind of neat because you can see that the points at the bottom here, and even these points here, you know, students focus really hard on those points sometimes. So if you want them to do that, that's great. If not, and you want to focus more on the skills that you put in there, this might be a good option for you. It can be helpful if working with drafts and you don't want the students getting hung up on numbers. And it still allows for ratings. So if I'm going to say remove points, it's going to remove all the points. But if you just want them to look at where they're at, then that would be a good way to do it. I'm going to say we're going to put those points back. We're not going to worry about the post outcomes results. We do not use this here. So for our purposes, we won't focus on this option. So if you want to use this rubric for assignment grading, this is important. I'm going to go ahead and select that because I want to be able to use this rubric to grade. Enabling this option assigns the rubric score, so that's going to be whatever is at the bottom once we use this for grading, as the total assignment score. If you leave it disabled, the rubric score and assignment score will remain separate. Okay, so if you don't have this checked, they're going to have a score for their rubric, and then you're going to give them a regular score for their assignment. You may run into issues with this if their rubric says they get a really high score, but then you give them a really low score. They may say, hey, what's going on? You could also hide the score total for assessment results. So if I do that, it takes away the bottom total points in the bottom right hand corner. You can see that there. I'm going to use this for this. Okay. For our practice assignment, I'm going to go ahead and hit update. Okay. So we're going to move into the views that you can see, and we're going to do student view and instructor view. So we're going to kind of show you what it looks like, what an assignment looks like to a student, and what it looks like to an instructor in grading view. So I'm in assignments here in the menu, and we're going to go ahead and look at the sample training assignment. I'm going to select that. So here's our sample training assignment. Here's the instructions here. We can see that there is a rubric attached to this, and you can see that it's in the ranges, right, and how many points it is. So the student will be able to see this. I'm actually going to go to the really upper right-hand corner in the gray box with the eyeglasses that says Student View. Going to select that, and you will see at the bottom here a very pink or purple, depending on how you see it, box that shows up that has two boxes at the bottom right-hand corner that says Reset Student or Leave Student View. So this will be really important once we do activities in here as this test student. So the system is seeing me as a test student right now, and it's seeing that I'm in this assignment. You can see that the crimson Start Assignment button has shown up in the upper right-hand corner. So I am now considered the test student. So when students come in, they see their instructor, or they see the instructions here. They see the title of the assignment, sample training assignment. They see the due date. This one doesn't have a due date, but if you have one, it'll show up here. How many points it's worth. Okay. Submitting, how they need to submit. It's by a file. Okay. File types, if you have specified certain types. This one says a Word doc and a PDF are the only things that the student can submit for types. Okay. You can also see that they can see the rubric that's in here, and they can see everything that's in it. It's quite a large rubric, but you can see that it's there too. So we're going to go ahead and say Start Assignment. Now what comes up past this is going to be everything that we saw before, but now this file upload comes up. They can choose a file, and then they would just select their file to upload. And you can see that it populates right here. Now they can leave a comment here and just say, here is my assignment. I hope you like it. Okay, whatever comment that you want to do. And now this is because you selected that text entry, and they could upload a file, right? I'm going to say I agree, and then I'm going to select as the student the submit assignment crimson button at the bottom of this box. And that is going to submit the assignment as a test student. Okay. So now this one has multiple attempts, so it says I could do another attempt here, but if you only had one attempt, it wouldn't say that there. In the upper right-hand corner, you can see the submission here. It says to the student, it has been submitted, when it was submitted. You can actually select submitted details or download the document yourself as a student. If you had any peer reviews, or if we had selected peer reviews, it would have that listed here. And here are the comments that the student has done too. That's all on the right-hand side here. You can see here's my assignment. I hope you like it. When that student had made that comment, or when I, as the test student, had made that comment. So in this case, at the bottom right-hand corner, remember the Reset Student and Leave Student buttons at the bottom right-hand corner. We do not want to reset the student because that's going to take away our submission. So if you really, as the instructor, just wanted to say, hey, I'm going to go into this test student and I'm going to see what this looks like, but you really didn't want to see it in the gradebook after that, then you would just hit Reset Student, and that would take away that submission for the test student. What I want to do is I want to keep this submission as the test student, and I want to leave student view, which will keep that submission. So I'm going to select in the bottom right-hand corner, leave student view. Okay, so now I'm in the instructor view again. And for the instructor view, I'm going to go in, let's take a look at the grades. let's go into our grades, which is in the menu item on for the course. On the left-hand side, select grades. Okay. So for this one, we're actually going to use Donald Duck here for the sample assignment training. Actually, I think I'm going to look at, I'm going to search assignments here in the upper corner. I'm going to say sample. Okay, cool, Donald Duck, that's awesome. Okay, so I'm going to say that. And that's a good search option for looking for things in Gradebook. We all go over that in Gradebook. So I'm going to say like this Minnie Mouse one has not been graded. And this is the item that you'll see. Okay. And if you want to go in there and grade it, then we would select it. Now you can just enter a grade right here if you want to. If not, we'll select this little arrow at the side. And that'll take you into this pop-out window. And you can select Speed Grader. Or you can just assign the letter grade right here if you want to. But we're going to hit Speed Grader, and that's going to take you in here. Okay. Now this isn't what we submitted, but I'm showing you a different sample here. So in this particular one, you can see on the right-hand side that we actually have submitted file. So here's the file that was submitted. Now this is going to be your similarity checker, or this is going to be the Turnitin report. Okay, this is the percentage that comes back for that. Okay, let's review some of the other ones. We'll come back to that. So here's the grade. They haven't given them a grade yet. So if I gave this student, a 20, and then I hit submit, then that would actually give them a B-. Okay, so that would give them a grade for this one. You can actually go in here and view the rubric. So that's going to bring up that entire rubric that was attached to the assignment. So I'm going to pull this out. So I'm hovering over the thing here, and I'm going to pull this out because it's a really big rubric and I want to see what it looks like. So let's talk about comments in here and things like that. So here's the criteria. Here's the rating. You can see that it's highlighting as I'm rolling over it. If I want to give the students, I can just select what I think the student needs to have for each rating. Okay, so I've selected them. You can see that it's populating with the highest score in that category. So the category says 1.25 to 0 points. It's given us this highest one. If I just want to give this student a 1 here, I can do that, and it would change it to that. Okay, so you can give them whatever range you want to. In the end column to the right, you can see that there's a little comment box here. I'm going to select that. And what I can do for this particular criteria is say, please work on this. Okay. And you can put your own comments in there. Maybe in this one, they did very well. The second one to the bottom, I'm going to say you got 5 and give them a comment. Very good job. Okay. So those are the 2 comments that I'm going to put in there. I'm actually going to stick one more in there and just sort of type something just to see the comments in there. But you can do that for every criteria, right? Now you can leave an overall comment for the entire assignment, and that would be down here. So this was a great assignment. Okay. Now at the bottom underneath this, you can see that you can attach a file yourself. You can create a video, media comment, or you could do speech recognition. So that means you can talk in it. It will recognize your speech and write it in there for you. This little button up here in the corner as well is a comment library. So if you want to save some comments that you do regularly, you can do that and just check which one you want. So I'm going to select submit. And you can see here's the comment that I made. I'm going to save this rubric. So don't forget to save. Crimson button at the left-hand corner of the rubric. Okay, so it's now selected and saved that. You can see the points that they got. Here's my comments. going to pull this back over so you can see some of the other things in here. All right, so I'm going to select View Rubric again, and I can go in there and change it again if I want to. So now that I've graded this for Minnie Mouse, I'm going to go into the grade book and take a look at her grades for this particular assignment. So to show you a student view of grades, I am in my sandbox right now, and I'm going to select Student View in the upper right hand corner with the glasses. I'm in the test student view here, and I'm going to select grades as the student. Okay. Now over here you can see that these are all the assignments for the student, and whether they were graded or not. And this is my sandbox, so there's not a lot graded in here. But I want to show you assignment 1. So this assignment 1 I have graded. You can see that the student got an 8 out of 10, so this is what the student can see. You can also see that I've left comments, or the instructor has left comments. There is a rubric attached, which is the little clipboard. And this colored icon here is going to be for the originality report, or the Turnitin report. So I'm going to select the comments. You can see that these are comments that I have made, or this is the comment the student made. You can see that this says test student here on the right hand side. Here's this a comment that I made as the instructor and when I left it, so they can see all those comments on that particular assignment. If I deselect that, I can also select the rubric, and it will show the rubric, what score I got out of it, each criteria, and then the total score at the bottom. Okay, give me a 7 points here. Scrolling back up to the assignment, I'm going to select now, let's deselect the rubric, and then I'm going to select this green colored icon, which is the Turnitin report, and it's actually going to take me right into the Turnitin report here, and it'll kind of show you what it looks like. And let's go maybe later. Let's go, got it. So it's going to show me similarity. You can see in the similarity report here that it got a 14%. It shows me the percentage breakdown and where it's at. So if I select it, it can tell me where it came from. So it gives you lots of information on that too. So if you're going to use Turnitin, make sure that you're reviewing this to see where it's coming from. Maybe it might be checking against something that is a rough draft of theirs. So of course it's going to come back with lots of similarities and stuff like that. So be careful when you're using this, but it is a very good tool. Okay, so that was the Canvas Assignments and Rubrics training. Thank you so much for watching.